Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Kelly. I own Dogkind and I specialize in confidence building for extremely fearful, feral, or shutdown dogs. And today we're going to be talking about enrichment. It's common for very scared dogs to not be very interested in playing at all or exploring or using puzzle toys. And I know that's something a lot of you want to do. You would like to get your dog to start opening up a little and enjoying life. And so we'll talk about what some of the first games I teach are to students in my confidence building course, and you'll get a little sneak peek into those games today. I'll show you some examples in some video. Fearful dog not interested in enrichment, beginning fun for shutdown dogs. This is for you if you have a very fearful feral or shutdown dog and they don't really interact with toys or other enrichment items you provide, but you would like them to start enjoying enrichment activities and just engage in more behaviors. Now, why do we bother with this? And this might be obvious to you, but some benefits of enrichment activities specifically for the extremely sensitive dogs that I work with include helping the dog, quote unquote, come out of their shell. So they learn to start to use their behavior to get good things instead of just hiding. And depending on which enrichment activities you provide, enrichment games can help build, so elicit and strengthen, helpful behaviors and skills that you can then build further on to help your dog learn how to navigate the human world a little better. Things like moving around, eating treats, approaching new items, and sort of the general behavior class of trying stuff out, trying behaviors out. All right, so let's talk about this very easiest enrichment game that I start my students on. All you need for this is a blanket or towel, very good treats, and you really should have a camera on your dog so you can watch remotely. What kind of blanket or towel? I usually use fleece or cotton, and you don't want something with a fringe or that's older and has strings hanging off of it, because if dogs eat those things, it could cause problems for them. So, and also you don't want them to get their nails stuck on any bits that are hanging off of the blanket or towel. And I like a medium or large size item just in case you have a dog who might actually try to eat something smaller like a washcloth or a hand towel. I often get asked what treats you should use, and this is pretty individual to the dog, but in general, I usually don't tell people to use treats that are made for dogs. Instead, I recommend meat or cheese, and keep the pieces about the size of your pinky nail, so pretty small. Things like boiled chicken, steak, pork, or little bits of string cheese. Okay, let's talk about step one of this very simplest enrichment game to get your dog started. Take your towel or blanket and spread it out so it's smooth and flat, or you could fold it too, depending on how large it is, but just make sure it's smooth. Place it on a non-slip surface like a yoga mat or something, right next to your dog's preferred resting spot, a bed or a crate, wherever they spend their time. Sprinkle some of those very high value treats just on top of the blanket or towel. Remember, meat or cheese. And then, importantly, go away. And you can watch using that camera you have on your dog's safe space. Here is an example of just the very basic setup. So here we've got a fleece blanket folded and it's flat, and I'm just sprinkling treats on top of it. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that to start. And you're going to watch and see on the camera, not in person, whether your dog goes to get the food. Now, often I will hear, well, my dog is just going to ignore it, or my dog is just ignoring it. What should I do? Here are some things to try to troubleshoot. One is to change the location of where you put the blanket or towel. The most common mistake I see is people putting it too far from where their dog likes to rest. And we want to require as little movement as possible on the part of your dog in the beginning. So I'll show you an example in a second, but placing it so close to your dog's crate or bed or wherever they spend time that they don't have to step off of their bed. You know, maybe they don't even need to put a single paw off of the bed. So really right next to where they rest so they don't have to move much. Another common problem is we humans tend to get a little bit impatient when we're waiting to see if our dog is going to try this out. For some sensitive dogs, especially in the beginning, this could literally take hours before they're brave enough to give it a try. And many dogs I work with won't move around really at all. until after dark, when everyone in the house is in bed. So make sure you're really out of sight, not just kind of lurking around the corner looking. Remember, you go totally away, and give it as much time as your dog needs. I've even had some students whose dogs won't get up and check out the enrichment items until they hear the humans leave the house. So that's something else you could try to get started. Another thing that can help is increasing the smelliness of the treats. So if you're using any kind of meat, just putting it into the microwave briefly to warm it up will at least temporarily make it smell more strongly, and that a lot of times will get catch a dog's interest. Okay, so if that step is going fine, you put treats on a flat blanket or towel right next to where your dog rests, go away, and they are getting up and or at least stretching their neck out and eating the food pretty consistently. You want to do this several times. You're going to set everything up the exact same way, but now introduce just a tiniest bit of difficulty by wrinkling or bunching up the blanket or towel. And let me show you what that looks like. Here we go. So there's that same blanket, and I put the treats on it, and then I'm just bunching it up a little bit so that there's a little more work to be done to get the food, and there's Pancake. Okay, let's take a quick look at some examples just so you can see this in action with some very fearful dogs. So this, I wanted to include this clip to show you what I mean by right next to a dog's safe space. This dog is really dark colored, and they're so it's kind of hard to see, but they're in the crate, and they're doing step 2 here. There's a blanket. It's at the bottom of the screen that's like dark colored with some white pattern on it. And the dog is just stepping out the front half of their body out of the crate to do this enrichment game. Okay, and then here's another example of a dog that was slightly more advanced in the sense that she's still in her safe space here, but she's stepped several steps out of her bed. But there again, that's just a towel that's a bit bunched up. Okay, so if you would like to try this very simple enrichment game with your shutdown or feral dog, gather your materials, so towel, blanket, prep your high-value treats, get your camera set up for your dog's safe space so that you can leave them in peace as they decide to check out the enrichment activity. And then you may need to experiment a little bit with the towel placement and what treats you use until you get consistent eating off of the flat towel. And it's only then that you'll start to introduce kind of the wrinkles in the towel or blanket. Go to the link dogkindtraining.com/fun to get a free PDF guide outlining the steps I talked about today, plus the next steps, and a link to video talking you through the full enrichment game. It'll give you also a little sneak peek into my confidence building course because it's a lesson in that course that I'll share with you.